Hello ladies and gents, this is another video brought to you by Anty. So those guys that are on my social media see me post this with a little spiel of what was going on and said to look forward to it from a video on either Wednesday or Saturday. Now obviously it's a clickbaity title because, as I've said before in my lives, you kind of like get governed by clickbait, believe it or not, on YouTube. But that was my intention, and I thought this was bad enough, but things got a lot worse. And to tell you the truth, this was the start of possibly the worst 3 days of my keeping career ever. And if you think that title was clickbaity, check the next one out, but it's so true. So this video is about my Solenopsis Geminata and my 4 days of hell. I'm not going to lie to you guys, this video quality is going to be pretty poor just because a lot of it was me reacting to what was going on. So stand by for that, but what a nightmare, really. Those of you who watched last week's video would know that my Solenopsis Outworld failed quite spectacularly and a bodge job did to fix it, and I'll put a link in the top right corner to that now so you can check it out. And I did a live stream at the weekend cancelling family plans because I knew it was going to be a big job to fix, or what I thought, fix the issue with the Outworld and where they'll get on out from. But yeah, we'll leave it at that for now and I'll continue with the story. So day one. In fact, previous to day one, I identified that pretty much on Monday, they were starting to get out from the S5, which is the Outworld on the left. And what they were doing, as you can see here, they were getting out from the gap underneath the connector. So I sellotaped it, and I thought I'd put a ton of sellotape on. But they got past this, and that's where the my video about my leaf cutters came into play, because from this they were getting out, and there weren't crazy high amounts, but there was enough of them for me to need to clean up, and they got into my leaf cutter setup. When I first seen this, I was pooping my pants because I know how aggressive Solenopsis can be, and I didn't want them to interfere with my leaf cutters because they're the kind of pride and joy of my Conley. And as you can just see here, as I zoom in, you can see them running around. Now, I did say do a 7-minute video. I'm not going to play it because it's going to be long enough, with me finding them, taking them out. Now, luckily for me, there was about 7 in here, so it wasn't too crazy. But if you look at my leaf cutters' reactions to it, like one just went up to it there, they weren't bothered at all. So they weren't stressed, they weren't in the fungus garden. So it was a narrow miss, to be fair. Now, I did use a lot of sellotape to try and seal it up, but a couple were getting out like this, so it wasn't no biggie, and it was something that I was going to address next weekend when I'm free to do the same treatment I did in my live stream, but with a smaller Outworld. And luckily for me, I moved my leaf cutters onto the next table away from this one, so if they did get out, they wouldn't interfere with them, and that was a good move. So let me set your scene of day one. I was talking to Perry on Discord. We all know him and love him. He's a great guy, as I generally do chit-chat with him quite a fair bit. And I came in, and he got my instant reaction of seeing something similar to this. Now, this is actually day 2, this picture, but I've got a video of day 1, I'll show you it. And in fact, I'm going to leave the audio in so you can actually listen to my interactions with myself and Perry. Silicon is fine, it's the other Outworld.
Did you know it was warping then?
It's not warped, they're getting out from underneath the...
Are they?
I'm just glad that I moved the leaf cutters off after they got into it. Underneath, it's right underneath the tube.
So the thing is, the issue you've got at the moment is, for you to do what you did with the other ones, you need at least 3 hours.
Exactly.
So he's sort of reconsidering having these ads now?
No. I like the challenge.
Man, feel your pain. Not literally, but at least you got another video, mate.
Well, I might go live tonight.
You're gonna go live?
I might do.
Oh. Yeah. And I won't do what I usually do, but...
No, not. Because you'll get a big fat mate. So as stated, I decided to go live. Now, this live went on for a while. There's two parts of it because, yet again, because I'm technically minded like a goldfish, it went blank and I stopped it and started again, a fresh one. So there, I'll put a link into the first one here so you can check that out if you want to. So during that live stream where I was filming what I was doing, the amount of ants that I was getting and continue to get just didn't make sense, because I could see them that there were the sellotaped area off on the S5, I think it is, which is just there, and that's the S6 on the right. The S5, that there weren't enough of them getting out to explain the amount of ants that I had running around, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. So I thought, I tell you what, something's amiss here, I'll have a look around. So I looked around to see if they were getting out of the S5 like they were the S6, and they weren't at all. But I moved the S6 out the way to see what was going on, and I was happily, because it's made me so ecstatic, greeted by this. At first I thought, wow, what was going on? But then I realised that they were actually getting out here. They'd actually chewed through the silicon that we did at the weekend live stream, and it only took them a couple of days. I mean, annoying at best. Australian Polyrhacus advised, as you can see in this video, that I used blue tack to seal it. So I decided to do that as a short-term fix, but it didn't work. So on day 3, I came back to this. This was by far the worst outbreak, and this happened yesterday. It was pretty rubbish, to be fair. Now, I think you get to see this when in a minute, but look at the outworlds and pay attention to how many ants I've actually got in there from what you've seen in the videos earlier when they got out. But what you can see there, that's actually the Gen 2 S3 nest that I used for my, what was it? It was my Phodolinodas. But what I decided to do was tap them all in here and clean them up on that, because that will enable me to be able to keep them centralized before I get the numbers down, so I can actually work on this surface before I looked at fixing the issue. Now, when I actually got to the issue, I don't think I recorded it. What had happened is it wasn't the ants getting out through the blue tack, it was the ants that were on the outside that were still running around that hadn't managed to collect yet, that had taken away the blue tack so they could escape out again. And it was quite a significant gap where a large number could get out. Now, by my estimates, this colony was around 20k when they first escaped, and I'm now looking, I've lost about half of my colony. Just look at the outworld into the top left here, you see how empty it was compared to how it used to be. And I've got fully formed trails, and they were everywhere. They were all over the floor. I probably killed a couple of hundred standing on them, trying to clean this mess up. I was sweating because it was hot in there. It was like 26 degrees and I was sweating. I've got drips all over at the table because I was sweating so much. But I also had my wife's concert thing in the evening, so I had to police this up the best I can. I even left work early yesterday as well because I was so tired, because cleaning up before I did the live stream, I didn't get to sleep till 1 o'clock at night, and then I was up at 5:20 to walk the dog. So I had very little sleep and I was tired, so I thought I'd leave work early. Came home to this, and then my world just collapsed. People said after my live stream that I looked like a broken man, and if I looked broken on that live stream, this had just murdered me. I can't tell you where they were. You might see it in this clip because this goes on for 10 minutes. I'll probably edit it. But they were all over every other ant setup I had. They were all over it. Luckily, because all of them were sealed and they didn't get into any of them that I could tell. The only one they did get into was empty anyway, and they were paying particular attention to my Camponotus paresis. I don't know why they were paying them so much attention, because maybe because there was moisture in their little their hydration tray, I don't know. But from what I could tell, they hadn't actually bothered my paresis in any shape or form. But there were quite attention allotted to them. They had also made their way downstairs into the kitchen, and then when I went to the toilet, they were in my family bathroom, which is on the same floor as this. They were getting everywhere. They'd formed trails all over the place. They are still in my kitchen as I speak now, but only much reduced numbers. I hoovered up as much as I could using the keyboard hoover that I got. I tried to pick them, like I said, I tried to clean them up as best I could. And now I know full well I'm not going to get them all because the escape was so prevalent, and I knew I wasn't going to be doing miracles in getting rid of them and stuff like that. But I'm trying to get my words out here. I'm just so frustrated watching me do this. Yes, so I knew I wasn't going to get them all, but what I wanted to do was put them in that outworld so I can actually gauge how many I'd saved. Now, from my recollection, and I think I've got some pictures of this I'll show in a bit, I probably saved only a couple of thousand. So my Connolly, from being 20,000, I would say about 500 to 1,000 I actually killed, collected them up. I'm not sure if it's the stress of being in the Hoover or what, but there is a significant amount of dead from the ones that I did collect up, and you'll see all that in a second anyway. As you can see, this is a major escape, and I had lost a lot, and I mean a lot of my Connolly. Yeah. The problem with these, I mean, we all know what happened to Ant Holifer, but they're big ants, and they're easy to see, and to tell you the truth, they're fairly easy to collect up and to deal with. When you've got ants this small, and they are very small, and the miners, which were the only ones that actually managed to get out, apart from when I was disconnecting it all so I could better clean it up and stuff, they're only a couple of millimeters max, so they get everywhere, and they're very difficult to collect up, and if they get out like this, then it's very difficult, and this has been an absolute nightmare. I can't tell you how difficult this was. It was horrendous, let's say the least. I've speeded it up a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing, and hoovering them up. What I actually ended up doing as well was dismantling this setup, separating the outworlds from the nests, etc., so I could get around them and look where they're actually getting out and see what I could do to address it. Like I said, I used you'll probably see me increase the numbers there we go from the Hoover. Now, as you can see, that I was putting them in here, and the majority of them are alive still, but I'm not sure if they died afterwards. I don't know, but I've now got a significant amount of dead, and actually once I've finished going through this video of me speeding it up, I'll actually show you what I mean, because I've got a video of collecting them all up. Where I could and where it was viable, I used the Hoover to clean up anything on a hard surface, but unfortunately on carpet using this method is impossible. And if we take a look at the outworld that I was collecting them all in, you can see there is a significant amount of dead. Now what they've done since now is piled up the dead, and I'll probably show you that towards the end when I show you the complete setup of how I've rejigged the whole setup as it is to give me a bit more space. But there is a lot of dead, and obviously a lot of detritus in there as well. Now unfortunately, with the ones that are in the carpet, just because there were so many, and my wife's parents are coming down tomorrow night, and I'm not about to sort my ants out, I had no choice but to hoover up all of the ones that were on the carpet. So I hoovered up the hallway, hoovered up in the bathroom, hoovered up in the kitchen, and I hoovered up in my ant cave. I don't know how many got hoovered up, but there was quite a large amount of them, but I had no choice at that point, and unfortunately it is the way it is. So like I said, this is the setup how I've got it now. I've obviously put the outworld side by side, and what I've done is, if you look at the S6 nest, I have put brown tape around the outside of it, because I know they're only getting out from one area, but I just didn't want to risk it for a biscuit, because I'm going to be away for the next 3 days. So just to stop them potentially getting out from any other places, so I've put this tape around it, and I've now reconnected both outworlds. But if you also notice on the left there, that is the Gen 2 S3 nest next to the S5 nest, because I obviously put them all there and I wanted to connect it up, and there was a lot of dead there, so I assumed because of dead there, they're going to start piling all their rubbish in there as well. So I thought I'd leave it there. Not only that though, it gives them some more space, because I think part of the issue why they escaped is because they didn't have the space they required, because I'm struggling financially to keep up with the growth of these girls. And I've always said that before, always be prepared, but then if you haven't got the money, then you're stuck, and I got stuck. Now unfortunately this morning I came downstairs and they were running around all over the place again, and they were managed to get out of this setup yet again. Unfortunately though, I didn't film it because I was running late for work anyway, because I slept in because I've been so exhausted with dealing with these girls, but so I didn't have time to film it. But if you notice on the Gen 2 S3 nest there, you'll see that I've got black tape around the outworld, and that's because they managed to get past the barrier. I only applied the damn barrier yesterday and had got past it overnight and running around everywhere yet again. Now this wasn't overly big escape, but there was significant numbers yet again running around my room. It's not ideal. What I do have, I've still got a large number of them running around now, but what I've done is I've collected as much as I can, cleaned up the sideboard, and then left it because I knew they'd go back to the nest eventually. So what I did when I got back from work, and I've done twice already today, I have hoovered up the area to clean them all up, to put them back into the outworld, or cleaned it up. So that is the way that I'm going forward. And what I've also done is I've put test tubes all over the place. I actually robbed this idea off Ants England on our live stream, because she stated that when her Camponotus nicobrensis escaped, she went to AntCon but put test tubes all over the place so the ants would hopefully be attracted to it, and it seemed to pull it out the bag, because when she came back from AntCon, she managed to collect up something like 200 Camponotus nicobrensis. So I thought, if it works for them, it will probably work for me. So I put them on the shelf because I had particular attention to this area, because I had my other Connolly's on there as well. So I put them in there to collect them up. And what I've also put them is on the floor directly below the table, because where you see where the test tubes are, there was a lot of activity, and I put one in the middle at the centre of the picture, that is. So because obviously the ants were running around there too. So I was hoping to collect a lot more of them up, and I can tell you it has worked. Since being away the weekend, I've managed to pick up a lot more. So what I do is obviously I collect these test tubes up maybe 2 to 3 times a day, and to drop them into the outworld. They're really dropping off in numbers. A couple of times, like I think this next one I pick up, it's got quite a fair few ants in there, but generally speaking, compared to how many was in there when I first started doing this, as you can see there's a few, they've really dropped off. So I'm starting to think now I've pretty much got the majority. I've probably got a couple of hundred still running around in places. So I'll keep these test tubes out for the next couple of days. Also, any stragglers that I find on a desktop, which is very few and far between now, I also collect them up using a cotton wool and tap them into the outworld as well. This one is being a little bugger and hiding underneath the tubes. There you go. And if you're worried about that wire is just connected to the aircon that I've got in here, so when it goes over a certain temperature, it kicks in. So after 3 days after the initial clean-up of them escaping 4 days in a row, this is what I'm at now. You can see my numbers have significantly dropped quite a fair bit. That outworld does need cleaning up, but as you can imagine, I've been distracted and not cleaned it yet, so don't whinge. But they've got a lot more tubing now, which has given them a lot more space to chill out and roam, so they're not all lurking in the outworld per se. But if we have a quick look into the nest, and I'll get a macro lens on these in a second, you'll see that they're quite emptied out compared to how it used to be as well. Yes, there is a fair few in a tube, granted, but there's not a lot left in the outworld compared to how they used to be. And if we look at this one as well, I did humidify these before I went to the weekend, and have moved quite a fair bit of their brood into the MS 5.5. But if we take a look with a macro lens, you can see that I've actually still got quite a fair bit of brood. Now this is the Gen 3 acrylic gypsum nest, I think it's called. As you can see, I've got quite a fair bit of brood here. So the Connolly itself is not overly suffering. I do need to feed them again because I've eaten all the roaches I've put in there. But yeah, there's quite a significant amount of brood in there still of all different stages. But like I said, they're heavily reduced in numbers compared to how they used to be. I would never be able to see this brood because it would have just been covered in ants. But obviously now you can see the brood quite clearly because I've lost so many. How many do I think I've lost? I haven't got a Scooby-Doo, but I'm going to say quite at least 5,000, possibly more. In viewing this, I did not actually see the queen at all. So if you do see the queen out of the course of these macro shots, please let me know in the comments and leave me a timestamp so I can have a look myself. But saying that, I've not seen the queen for a long time, so I don't think she's escaped. I just think she's hiding in the piles of brood, and there is significant piles of brood. Now this is just like the Gen 3 nest. As you walk around it, you'll see just how much numbers I've dropped off compared to how many used to be running around it. Literally, you won't see the white of the floor because there'll be so many of them running around all over it. But what there is on these walls here is plenty of brood as well stuck to it. I don't know why they do that. Rather than put it in piles, they stick it against the wall, but like I said, it's their preference and I'm not too fussed. And this is the MS 5.5. You can see there's plenty of brood in here as well. So yet again, this is stacked quite high. As you can see, there is plenty of brood in here too. They've actually moved some of it out of the Gen 3 stuff because I've hydrated this. Now, I'm not sure if I've got a preference this or not, I don't know, but significant amount of the brood. In fact, probably half the 5.5 is actually full of brood. But then once we go over to the other side, you'll see that's also got a significant amount of brood in it as well. I have definitely got more brood than I've ever had previously. So am I overly concerned that about this escape? Yes, I am concerned they escaped, obviously, but I think that the numbers recover relatively quickly, just judging by the amount of brood that I've got. I just need to make sure they've got plenty of protein so they can rebound quickly. And finally here we've got the MS 3.5, the smallest or the original nest, and there's still quite a fair bit of brood in here as well. And yeah, again, I did hydrate this as well just to keep them happy while I was away at the weekend, but there is still tons of brood in here. So Yet again, lots of brood. They will bounce back bigger and better, but what this escape has given me is some breathing space to look at getting them some new setups. So what I'm going to do going forward is, clearly the acrylic outworlds aren't really good enough for Solenopsis because they can get out of them. Now these outworlds are really good and they're still really functional for larger species, like Phodolies will probably be fine in here. Just the tiny nature of Solenopsis, and they just get out, so these aren't really good for Solenopsis, which is disappointing because they are good quality outworlds. And this is where I need your help, guys. I'm going to move to glass for these because I think it's going to be the only thing that can actually try and contain them. So if you know anybody other than Antcube, because they're ridiculously expensive and in Europe, and Custom Aquarium, who is my last resort, if you know anybody that does supply glass outworlds, roughly the same size as these outworlds here, please drop me a line or get them to get in contact with me via Instagram or Facebook, because glass is going to be the only thing that's going to keep them. I'm looking, like I said, outworlds roughly this size. They're going to need to have a lid and be airtight in those regards. And they're also going to need to have tubings, areas where I can connect tubing to, so I have holes drilled in. Now, like I said, if you know them, tag them into this post, send them this video, tell them that I need to get in contact with them, and I'll be more than happy to buy something off them. The only reason I don't want to use Custom Aquarium, even though I've used them before for my terrarium and they are really good, is the fact that they don't post. So ideally somebody that posts would also be very helpful. Anyway, that's it for today then, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, because I can generally tell you the past week with these girls has been an absolute nightmare. I do not recommend them for anyone to get, even the most experienced ant keepers, because like me, they might bite you in the ass and get too big too quickly, and you can't house them as much as I should. And I think that's part of the reason they escaped, is because they needed more space to expand, and then it just went 4 days of hell. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. If you've got any questions about my ants or just general chit chat, by all means contact me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search for Ants Hood. But also a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. So please join me in giving a big thank you to, there it is, Adam W, Adrian, Antantics, Anty Matters, David D, Jason W, Paul A, Pavance, PJGrant, the 530 Ski. If you want to become a Patreon, please check the link out in the description below. But I've also got a YouTube membership, so if you guys want to join that, there will be a link below this video. And thank you to Anty Matters, PJGrant, and Wakooshi for supporting me on my YouTube membership. And that brings me to the end of this video, possibly the hardest week of my ant keeping life. So I do hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye for now.